Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, it is 101, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to welcome you to Addressing Conflict and Customer Relations. This is a presentation of the New York State and CSCA Partnership for Education and Training. My name is Kyle Nurse, and I will be your host for today's webinar. And I'm joined by Ms. Kate Morris, who will be your instructor. Now, at this point, I'm going to mute everyone's phones just to make sure the background noise is at a minimum. However, if you have questions, you can do one of two things. You can click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, which we all used for our handout question, and then I'll give you the floor, and then you can, ask your question, or you can go ahead and put it in the text chat. Again, the text chat, which we've been using, is located on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Now, if the text chat isn't open, just go ahead and click on the arrow next to the word chat, and it should open up for you. And then before you hit enter on your question, comment, or concern, I just want you to make sure that everyone is listed in the to section of the chat box area. Now, as I said previously, this webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSCA Partnership for Education and Training. There's a lot of words there, so a lot of people just simply refer to us as the partnership. Now, for those of you who may not necessarily be familiar with the partnership or wondering what we are exactly, I want you to think of us as an organization that administers education and training programs for CSCA represented employees, and we do this through labor management cooperation. So in essence, the partnership is funded through negotiated agreements between both New York State and CSCA. Now, on whole, we offer in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, as well as other education and training programs, including the webinar that you are attending today. So I want you to think of the partnership as a joint labor management organization, all right? And our sole mission really is to promote career mobility, to improve your job skills, support workplace safety and health, as well as promote effective labor and management relations. As you see on the slide, we have our contact information up. You can contact us directly by either calling us or reaching out to us via email. And I'll also provide our contact information at the end of today's session. But now that you know a little bit more about the partnership, I want to jump right into addressing conflict and customer relations. And I'm going to turn the webinar over to Ms. Kate Morris.
Thanks, Kyle. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you could join us today. I think this is an interesting and an important topic. You may be asking yourself at this point, why do I need to learn about conflict management strategies at work? And I'd like to answer that by having you guess, what's the average amount of time full-time employees spend weekly dealing with workplace conflict? Would you say it's A, less than half an hour, B, 1 hour, C, almost 3 hours, or D, depends on the role?
All right, so I'd like for you to notice that I've opened up that slide-out panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I want you to take your mouse and click on the option A, B, C, or D that you feel is the best answer. Again, remember when you're done, click send so that we can see that data as it unfolds. And I'm looking at the poll, and it looks like I have about half of the folks who are in the class have voted. Waiting on just a few more before we close it out. I see Matthew chimed in, Nicole chimed in, and Kathy chimed in the text chat. Go ahead and hit that Slido panel though. Let's try and see if we can't get your input into the aggregate number. Again, what is the average amount of time employees spend dealing with workplace conflict in a week? A, less than a half hour, B, an hour, C, almost 3 hours, or D, depends on the role. And it looks like, Kate, I have over half the class, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deactivate the poll, and it looks like 60% of the people say, Kate said D, it depends on the role.
Yeah, I see that. That is definitely the majority here. Thank you all for your responses. So let's look at the correct response. You may be surprised to find out that the correct answer is actually C, almost 3 hours a week. According to a recent study, the average full-time employee spends 2.8 hours a week managing conflict. and that adds up to 385 million working days in the United States. So based on this data, you can see conflict management and resolution skills are very important. During today's webinar, we'll be focusing on providing effective strategies to help you better manage conflict. And we're going to do this by exploring 4 steps that can help you stay in control of any confrontational situation. These include allowing the customer to vent, finding common ground, listening to understand, and then negotiating a conclusion. By learning this information, you'll be able to apply conflict resolution strategies that will diffuse and not escalate the situation. And you'll be able to communicate more effectively so you respond rather than react to conflict. And I hope that you'll feel free to add to the discussion and ask questions as we go along. And I'll also be asking you questions too, so please try to respond. As public employees, you have a variety of customers that you are trying to help and serve. Unfortunately, when interacting with others, things don't always go as smoothly as planned and conflict can occur. No one enjoys managing conflict. It can be uncomfortable, intimidating, and upsetting. And it's challenging, but it's an essential skill for any employee. No matter what your job or where you work, when we deal with customers, conflict will inevitably occur. Conflict can mean different things to different people. When you hear the word conflict, what does it mean to you?
So I want you to go ahead and type your answers in the chat box. If the chat box is open, again, click on the arrow next to the word chat. And I want to know, what does conflict mean to you? And they're coming in, and Courtney says a disagreement between 2 parties, disagreement, difference of opinion, disagreement. So, disagreement between 2 parties, an argument. Oh, one of them was different. Let me slow that down. A conversation that does not go the way one party likes. Um,
Mm,
so as we can see, when we're talking conflict and what I'm looking at, it looks like, the overwhelming consensus is that it's a disagreement or dispute, Kate.
yep, okay, great. Yep, between 2 parties, never desirable, but sometimes cannot be avoided. Fantastic. All of these are good answers, right? I mean, I think we know conflict when we feel it and when we see it and when we hear it. So I thank you for responding. Conflict can appear in different forms, but if we generally experience conflict when our concerns are being challenged, this is what leads to disagreements and the differences of opinions, especially when interacting with customers. While disagreements can be thought of as an expression of different viewpoints, conflict results in an expression of frustration and sometimes anger about that difference. So there's a slight difference there, the frustration and anger. Conflict in itself is not a problem. However, it can become destructive if it isn't properly managed. If it's not dealt with in the right way, it can damage your credibility and the reputation of the agency where you work. When it is handled appropriately, however, it can show the customer that you're willing to work with them. It reveals problems that need to be corrected and leaves the customer with a positive feeling about you and the agency. So today's webinar will provide you with the constructive ways to handle customer conflict. And this will help you maintain your composure while working to resolve the situation as effectively as possible. Okay, so let's take a look at a situation where conflict exists. Let's say that you're a customer service employee working in the vital records department in the Department of Health. The customer has finally been connected with you on the phone after being bounced around through several agencies. The man needs a copy of his birth certificate to obtain a passport. He has an important international business trip coming up for work, and he understands that getting a passport takes several weeks. By the time he reaches you, he is extremely agitated. You pick up the phone and say, Good morning. This is Mary Sunshine of Vital Records. How may I help you today? And the customer responds angrily. Mary Sunshine, is it? You're the fourth person I've spoken to, and I do not want to be transferred one more time. I can't believe it is this difficult for me to get a copy of my birth certificate. Don't you people know what you're doing? Okay, so here's my question for you. If you were that customer service representative in Vital Records, how would you handle this call about that birth certificate?
All right, so I want you to consider what you might do in this situation and drop your thoughts in the chat box. And Tanya chimes in, listen to their frustration with empathy, apologize, and state that you will do your best. Show empathy, stay calm. I think I saw stay calm and with a good attitude. Yes, I would listen to the customer, share what he feels, what he feels and what the problem is, and then try and understand possible solutions. Show kindness and stay calm. So as they're coming in, I'm seeing that there's a theme here that individuals will be empathetic, they would apologize, and they would try and do their best to stay calm, Kate.
Excellent. Really good. Thank you all. A lot of participation. As I said earlier, we might have very different responses based on how prepared we are to deal with the situation. Whenever you're dealing with a situation that is problematic, it's best to remain in control and communicate effectively. These things will help you resolve their situation as effectively as possible. More answers still coming in. Great.
I see that they're chiming in.
Yep. There are 4 steps that you can use in the moment to address conflict in an effective manner. And these 4 steps include 1, allowing the customer to vent, finding common ground, listening, and then finally negotiating a conclusion. The first step, venting, will always take first. And likewise, negotiating the solution will always come last. However, the middle 2 steps can be applied in whichever order makes sense to your situation. Remember, we always want to handle any customer interaction with grace and professionalism. By using these steps, you'll be able to tackle any situation with the right attitude, one that acknowledges the situation but doesn't escalate it. So, the first step in conflict management is to allow the customer to vent. When a customer reaches you and you realize that they're unhappy, your first priority should be to adjust your focus. You'll have to work through the facts and the feelings of the situation. And you'll need to address the emotions first by allowing the customer to vent without interrupting. While this is happening, you should ask yourself, what is the customer feeling right now? And what must he get off his chest before I can begin helping him? By understanding the source of the problem, you can select the best strategy to deal with the situation. You can learn more about the root causes of conflict by looking at the class materials for this course, and that would be in your participant guide on page 2.
Now, remember, if you haven't printed out your class materials yet, that's okay. You can always do so after the webinar is over. Just go back to the webinar email invitation that you received. I want you to click on the join link. And then instead of logging in, you're going to scroll down to the attachment section, and that's where you'll see your handouts.
Right. Okay. So if someone has received services that are unacceptable from your agency and you interrupt to explain a policy, the customer gets the impression that you're only concerned with your own objectives. Until the customer has an opportunity to say what they need to, they will not be ready to listen to you. So give customers airtime to express their feelings and explain what's going on. At this point, they need to know you care about them as human beings. Provide simple verbal phrases such as, I see, or go on. That indicates that you're listening to their story and how it is impacting them. If it's an in-person interaction, you could also add positive body language, such as good eye contact, nodding your head, the appropriate facial expression to show the same thing. By allowing the person to vent, you can gain insight into the scope of the problem and determine the next step to begin the dialogue with the customer. When a customer is venting, they may blame you. Try not to take it personally. The customer is frustrated with the situation and not necessarily you. However, if you feel yourself reacting emotionally to the customer, then it can help to focus on your problem-solving skills and not your emotions. Keep some emotional distance if you can, and try not to get defensive. No, it's hard, but remember you're in charge of how you react. Thomas Jefferson said, "Nothing gives one so much advantage over another as to remain always cool and unruffled under all circumstances." I love that quote. Now, if a customer is becoming hostile or rude while they are venting their emotions, and you have some information that you need to find, you can politely let them know that you're putting them on hold while you, quote, pull his or her file. And this gives both of you a chance for a brief timeout and refocus your energies in the right direction. If the person is venting in person, you might want to step away to another office briefly to, again, get information. If things go too far, though, you also may need to draw the line with the customer. And if this happens, you can respond with a statement like, "Sir, your offensive language is getting in the way of our ability to solve this problem." Remember, the goal in this step is to work through the emotions so that both parties can calmly look for an appropriate solution. Okay, let's go back to vital records, the scenario for a moment. Based on the circumstances of this particular situation, if you were the person dealing with the gentleman on the phone who needed the birth certificate, what strategy would you use to allow him to vent his emotions? Would you A, just listen and respond with simple phrases like, "I see"? B, nod your head and use appropriate facial expressions? C, put the customer on hold to get some information? Or D, draw the line. You can't help it if he takes that tone with you.
All right. So I'd like for you to notice that I've opened up that Slido panel again. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. I want you to take your mouse and click on the options A, B, C, or D that you feel is the best strategy within this situation. Again, when you're done, go ahead and click send so that we can all see the data populate in real time. And it looks like I have some votes coming in, Kate. I have 28 votes coming in so far. And then I also believe I have individuals chiming in on the chat. I see Tanisha said she would click on A.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that number again. We have 33 votes, so just under half the class has voted. Go ahead and tap that panel, A, B, C, or D, that you feel would be the best response in this situation. And it looks like 95% of the people who have tapped that poll, Kate, said that they would choose A.
Yes.
And then I
Wow.
also believe I have a slew of A's in the chat as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It kind of looks like a landslide for A. So thank you all for responding. And I would agree that the best course of action in this case would be A. Just listen and respond with simple phrases like, "I see." And this will provide the customer the time he needs to release his negative emotional energy before the two of you can start working through the situation. While all of the other options are possible solutions, they're not really the best course of action based on this situation. Response B would be appropriate if it was face-to-face, but because this is taking place over the phone, the customer is unable to see your reaction. Having said that, even when you're on the phone, sometimes it doesn't hurt to nod your head. That way, gestures like this will become natural for you when the customer is in front of you. At this point, you probably don't need to pull any information yet, so C probably is not the best choice. However, if you were dealing with a highly charged customer and obtaining some necessary documentation would be helpful, this could be a helpful approach. And finally, drawing the line should be a last resort when you're allowing the customer to vent. You would use this strategy when a customer has crossed the line with threatening and abusive behaviors, which prevents you from doing your job effectively. So, any questions about any of this? And if you do, please raise your hand.
So if you do have a question, go ahead, click on that raise hand button. It's found at the bottom of the participants panel next to the emoticon, or you could just drop it in the chat area. And just a quick note, when I brought up that Slido panel, your participants and chat panels may have disappeared. So to make them reappear, you can go ahead and click on the arrows next to participant and chat respectively, and they will drop down for you. And Kate, I am not seeing any hands, nor am I seeing anything in the chat. So it looks like you're good to move forward.
You're all together. Thank you. Okay, so now we're up to the second step in conflict management. And this is to find common ground between you and the customer. When the customer has stopped venting, don't try to solve the problem right away. Instead, offer an empathetic response that shows you're on the customer's side. And this can help you find common ground with the customer. Finding common ground will demonstrate that you understand his perspective and that you want to help. So a statement like, it sounds like this has been very time consuming for you. With your current travel schedule, I know you must have had very little time left in your day to spend on a matter like this. This shows that you understand why he's frustrated. You want to be genuine and sincere in your response. Showing recognition of his or her situation can be an excellent way to make a connection. If nothing else comes to mind, just try to reflect back to them their emotions and their feelings. Try a comment like, "This must be very frustrating for you. I know I would be frustrated too." And even if the source of the conflict has nothing to do with you, it can help to apologize. Saying something like, "I apologize that you were being bounced around on the phone like that. That would make me upset too." Customers appreciate the honesty, and they'll feel like you're working with them to resolve the situation. Okay, let's go back to our birth certificate scenario again. What response would you use to find some common ground with the customer?
All right, so I want you to think back to the situation that we gave you, and I want you to type your ideas on what could be said to create common ground with this customer. Go ahead and drop that in the chat box for me. What are some things that we can say to create common ground with this customer?
Everyone's thinking.
All right, thank you, Dawn. I understand your frustration. I also hate being transferred over and over, kind of just relating to it in terms of, our life. I like that. I understand being on hold with a time sensitive problem can be frustrating. Um, I feel your anger. I understand your frustration. I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry your experience, well, with being bounced around. Let me see how I can help. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we don't might want to go there immediately, but
Mm-hmm.
excellent, excellent. It definitely sounds like the group is feeling this individual, Kate.
Wow, really, really good responses. I think you've all been in a similar situation, so I can see your experience coming through. And I think any of these comments would be appropriate. The key is to find something you feel comfortable agreeing with that shows you're on his side. "I'm sorry you went through 4 agencies before you got to me," or "I know how aggravating this can be when you're not getting the information you need." These kinds of things just help the person feel heard. Make it a habit to keep finding connections with your customers during the conversation and make sure you point them out. Finding some common ground will increase the feeling of collaboration and cooperation, and it will allow the conversation to continue down the right path. After all, it's hard to argue with someone that you're agreeing with. Do you have any questions about finding common ground step? You all had such good answers. If you do, please raise your hand.
Let's go ahead, click that raise hand button. Again, it's at the bottom of the participants panel. Or if you prefer, you can go ahead and type it in the chat. Are there any questions to this point? I see Shayna, you have your hand up. I'll go ahead and unmute you. Shayna, what's your question? right?
I'm
Hand
not.
this up
Oh,
with accident. Oh,
oh,
can't
here.
some of the venting and common ground cycle back around to more venting?
Yeah, Shayna, I see your point there. That definitely, sometimes when people get hold of a megaphone, they do kind of like to continue. So you'll be using the next step to kind of help them move through to break that loop in the conversation. While you're agreeing with them, you're saying, "Oh, I totally feel you. I understand. This must have been very frustrating for you. Let's see what we can do." Right? That statements like that might move them to the next stage in the process. I hope that makes sense. Um, and that next stage, by the way, is listening to understand. And so Shayna, asking questions at that point might start getting us into like the data of the situation and might help move us to the problem solving conclusion. So the third step in conflict management is listening to understand. And the main goal for managing conflict is to guide that conversation toward the positive outcome. If the customer goes off on a tangent or they're caught in a loop, try to redirect the conversation now back to finding a solution. By finding the common ground and focusing the conversation throughout that interaction, you'll be in a better position to address the conflict in a positive way. And there are 3 strategies I can recommend for you to use to guide that conversation in the right direction. And you can do this by listening to understand, asking good questions, and stating your case tactfully. One of the first things we often do when we're involved in a conflict is to stop listening. Our natural tendency in conflict is to listen only to the things that will prove our point. However, the best way to resolve a problem is to listen carefully to everything that the other person is saying. You may even want to jot down some notes. Another thing you can do is maybe identify some phrases and verbal like encouragers that you can use to let the other person know that you're listening. Sample phrases you can use might be, "So what you're saying is," or "If I heard you correctly," simple "go on, tell me more." This indicates that you really are present and listening to their perspective. And when you're genuinely interested in understanding the other person, you'll have the right attitude to begin asking good questions. And you'll need to ask questions for a variety of reasons, not just to get answers, but also to move successfully through the difficult situation. Here's some other reasons why. First, you might need to get information. When do you need this by? Also, you might want to clarify something that you don't understand, such as, could you explain what you need? Or maybe confirm your opinion, like, don't you agree? To get a new perspective, for example, how do you see this? And finally, to check facts. Simple, is that right? There's often more than one kind of question you can ask. You can ask a closed-ended question or an open-ended question. And both of these question types are useful when they're used in the right way. So a closed-ended question is used to confirm your information. It's asked with the intention of getting a yes or no response. These types of questions can also help focus the customer back on the facts of the situation. An open-ended question is then used to invite the customer to participate in the discussion and provide more information that may be helpful. These kinds of questions are good when you're trying to understand their problem or their feelings on the topic, and they can also help you build rapport with the customer. Asking questions is kind of like a funneling process. You typically start with a broad, open questions, the wide part of the funnel, and then eventually start asking more narrow, closed questions to bring them back on track to that solution. All right, let's test our knowledge of the two types of questions. Think about questions like, did that answer your question? Or do you have the appropriate paperwork? Are these open or closed questions?
So go ahead and type in the text chat whether you think these are open or closed-ended questions. And answers are coming in fast and furiously, Kate. And it looks
Mm-hmm.
like the majority of the individuals on the call to this point are tapping that these are
Oh,
closed-ended
yes,
questions.
I agree. Yes, thanks everyone. Yes, the answer is that these are both closed-ended questions. They will help you determine the facts of the situation, and they can be answered by a simple yes or no response. So let's do another one. What types of questions are, how did this happen? Or how may I assist you today? Would you say these are closed-ended or open-ended questions? Oh.
And you are already hitting that
Mhm.
text chat. I like it. I
Mhm.
like it. It means you're following along with us. And
Uh,
so far,
yeah,
while I'm seeing scroll is open, 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 and
fast,
more
fast,
open.
fast. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The answer to these are both open-ended questions. Open-ended questions help to draw out more detailed information from the customer. So thank you. Great job. When when you ask questions, it may become necessary at times to put the customer on hold or to make him or her wait so you can gather information that's important to the conversation. It's best to continue to find common ground at this point. Explain that you understand how frustrating the process is, but you're doing everything you can to help. Also, maybe let the other person know how long it will take for you to get the appropriate information that you need and why you need to do it. Finally, it's always a good idea to ask for a callback number in case you get disconnected. So after you've gathered all of the information you need, take the opportunity to kind of recap what they've said. And you can ask if they have anything to add. Feeling understood can help diffuse that level of frustration. Even if it becomes clear that the customer, or maybe even your agency, is at fault, the role is not to assign blame. Instead, the goal is to work toward resolving the problem so the customer feels that he or she is being taken seriously. For example, if the customer is not happy about the services they're receiving, one thing you can do is to remind them what your agency has done up to this point to help. This is also a time you can state your case or your view of the situation as tactfully as you can. Part of stating your case may be to calmly explain any policies that must be followed for the customer to receive what they need. Don't assume customers know your agency's policies. They don't. Part of your role as the customer service agent is to help the customer understand the rules that must be followed, that you must follow, and to explain the reasons why. Customer, the customer may not always agree with the procedures or like them, but they are generally there for a good reason. So taking the time to explain these policies can really help diffuse a combative situation. Has anyone done this? Please raise your hand if you've explained a policy to a customer when you were trying to diffuse a situation.
So I want you to go ahead and click on that raised hand button and let us know if you have explained a policy to a customer when you were trying to diffuse a situation. I'm going to go ahead and click my raised hand button because I know I have.
I'm raising my hand.
Quite a few hands are up. Not the
Mhm,
whole group, but I would say about half the group have their hands up, Kate, with regards to
mhm.
this question.
Yep. Now, would anyone feel comfortable sharing maybe a specific example of when they took the time to explain a policy and how that helped the situation?
So if you'd like to tell us about your experience, go ahead, keep your hand up, and I'll give you the floor. It looks like we have a couple hands up. Let me see. They're changing on me fast and furiously.
Yeah.
Shayna, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to explain your situation? And I'm not hearing Shayna. I see Tanya commented in the chat
Mhm.
that she does this, but she tries to do that more towards the middle of the conversation and not necessarily at the start of the conversation. I like
Which is
that.
good because we're in the middle of our stages, Shayna, Tanya. So it's true. We're kind of right in line with what you do.
And Shayna looks like she didn't have the mic, but she dropped it in the chat. A client was late to their appointment, and our policy is that after 15 minutes, we need to reschedule. I explained that they signed a sheet that stated they understood the policy and was able to get them rescheduled. All right, excellent. Thank you.
That's a perfect example. That's really what we're talking about. Sometimes, policy is the way our offices run, and a tactful explanation to a customer can kind of help move things to the resolution, which is rescheduling in that case. And that was half your job. That's funny, Elisa. During my time in the tax department, that was half of my job, was explaining policies. Great.
Bet. I can bet.
It's always best to explain what you can do versus what you can't do when you're stating your view of the situation. If you can't provide services immediately, just explain the steps you'll be taking to get the customer's request completed. No one likes to hear the word no, even if there are things that are beyond your control or there are limitations on what you can do. Try to focus the conversation on the productive actions you are taking. The key here is to help the customer understand your perspective on things without making him or her defensive or becoming more upset. All right. Let's go back now to our scenario with the man who needs his birth certificate. Which of these options would be the best strategy to redirect the conversation in a more positive way? Would you A, listen to understand, B, ask questions, C, state your case tactfully, or D, all of the above?
All right, so I'd like for you to notice that I am launching the Slido poll. It's open on the right-hand side of your screen. I want you to click on it with your mouse, A, B, C, or D, that you feel is the best situation. Again, when you're done, make sure you click send so that we can see that data populate. And I'm seeing right now with about half the folks in the class, they are leaning on D,
Mm-hmm.
all of the above. And just let me check the chat. The chat is filled with a plethora of D's as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that the group is leaning on D at a clip of over 90%, Kate.
Excellent. And I will absolutely agree with you all. The customer is agitated from being bounced around to different agencies. So first you want to A, listen to understand. And next you want to B, ask questions to clarify whose birth certificate, correct spelling of the name, the date of birth, all of that. And then once you have the appropriate details, you can C, state your case tactfully by apologizing for the phone circus and explaining your agency's procedures for obtaining the birth certificate. So you're right, all of these options apply. Do you have any questions about the listening step? If you do, please raise your hand.
All right, so if you do have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, or you can drop it in the text chat if you prefer. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And I do see a hand. Okay, this one's going to be this is a test.
Okay.
A Yodije. A Yodije. Did you have a question?
But it's IO for short.
IO for short.
Yes, yes. So my struggle, I've been in customer service since I was 16, so it's been a long time. My struggle has always been as far as listening, sometimes people can be long-winded and sometimes, you can tell that they just want to be heard or they need someone to talk to. So
Mhm.
my struggle has always been to like where to cut that off when it's taking the long winding road. And
Yes.
yeah.
So in this kind of case, you might, I'm going to humbly suggest, because you have a lot of experience,
Yeah.
and so um, But doing things like say, so, oh my goodness, how much time has this taken so far? Well, I won't take another extra minute of your time. Let's get to seeing what we can do about this, right?
Okay.
Kind of helping them see the value of their time and the value in expediting things for their benefit. But I do know some customers really want someone to talk to during a
Yeah.
long day, and that's what they're hoping for. But well, I can't wait till we see this all resolved for you. Let me get right to work on that. Right. So it's kind of prompting you to take action, which will really be the next step and kind of maybe limit some of their social interaction with you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
All the
Thank you for the
best.
question.
Mhm.
And I just need to know, did I say your name correctly? Ayodeji.
Oh,
I know you go
no.
Ayo for short, but I need to know if I said it right.
No, it's Ayodeji, but it's
Ayodeji.
just Ayo for short.
Ayodeji. I will
Yeah,
not forget
Deji.
it.
De-
Ayodeji.
Close, close, close.
I'll get better, I promise.
It's okay.
Thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're up to the last step in the process, and this is to negotiate a conclusion. Now that the conversation has been guided to a more positive track, you can negotiate a conclusion. The key here is to stay focused on the future and not the past. Rather than going back and discussing what went wrong and what caused the conflict in the first place, what we want to do here is identify what can be done to solve the problem. And you can do this by working with the customer to come up with some simple solutions that might resolve the situation. One way to do this is to explore all of the options that are possible at this time. You can negotiate what you can do based on what is customary and what regulations need to be followed, of course, but involve the customer in the decision-making process. A question like, what are your expectations for solving the situation? Helps you identify his objectives and offer solutions that are within your control and boundaries. And this also helps them to feel like you're a partner and not an adversary. If you're not at the last step in the process, you'll need to refer to the customer to another person or department, and you'll have to explain this to them. You want to tell the customer where they need to go next and why, and explain what they should expect when they get there. And don't forget to provide your contact information. Reassure them that if they need any further help, they can call you or come back to see you. Remember, in this last phase, the purpose is to find a remedy to the situation, even if the problem may not be completely resolved at this point. You want to do your best to ensure the situation isn't going to get out of control again, and that the customer gets the services that they need. During this last step, it also may become obvious that there is no resolution to the situation. You can't do what the customer needs because it breaks a law or a deadline's already been missed or nothing can be done further at this point. And that's tough. You want to take the time to explain why the situation can't be fixed and sincerely apologize for the mistake or inconvenience. It's also a good idea to thank the customer for bringing the matter to your attention. Let him or her know that you will let the appropriate people in your agency know about the situation to see what can be done to prevent it from happening again in the future.
All right, Kate. And it looks like you have a question. You had two questions in the chat. You just answered, I believe, Danielle's question,
Oh,
but
good.
Tanya is asking, is it all right to ask them for the caller's contact information as to follow up with them if you can't resolve the matter on your own, so that there is that follow-up and maybe improve their ideas, opinions about your department and or agency?
Yeah, I think that is a great idea, but then you'll have to kind of put a post-it note or something that you're now the one who's responsible for following up. What I like more is to provide your contact information. So that kind of puts the responsibility on that individual. And you let them know if you still haven't found resolution, you can come back to me and I can kind of help troubleshoot. And that way, if the situation resolves, done, you may never hear from them again. But if there is an outstanding issue, that they can come back and you can help maybe direct them. And that way the responsibility still lies on the customer. I understand what you're saying, and I think that is exceptional customer service to want to reach out and follow up. But that is an extra layer of responsibility for you that you'd have to, commit to following up with. Kyle, what do
And
you think?
I would also just like to add, you might also just want to check your agency's protocols and procedures with regards to that. There are some agencies that, you may have their contact information and it would be good to tell them, I have your contact information and I'll reach out to you when this is satisfied. But ultimately, you just want to make sure that you're doing things within the parameters of the boundaries that have been set up for you, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Kyle. It's a really good point. All right, let's go back to our customer who needs that birth certificate for his passport. What types of things could you say to negotiate a conclusion with him?
So go ahead and hit that text chat up and let us know what types of phrases would you use to negotiate a conclusion with the individual who's looking for his birth certificate. And I'm going to assume we are thinking and
Thinking,
typing.
yeah.
All right, now they're coming in. Let's
Yeah,
see what
really
we can do to
thoughtful.
try and get that to you as soon as possible. I hear what you shared. Let me see what I can do to help. I'll put a copy in the mail or you can pick it up. Okay, I like that.
Yep.
Let me hear from a couple others. I understand what you're saying. Let me see what I can do moving forward to help you. Explain the next steps in the process and follow. I really like that. Explain what's going to happen next and then make sure it happens. And Mike chimed in. I completely understand. Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can help here. So, a lot of helpful statements with regards to working with this customer and really driving towards the solution, Kate.
Really, really thoughtful. Excellent suggestions. Thank you, everyone. Remember, once the situation resolved, you want to thank the customer for his patience and bringing this problem to your attention. It shows that you care and it leaves that exchange in a positive note. Any questions now about the negotiating a conclusion step? And if you do, please raise your hand.
All right, so go ahead, raise that hand if you do have a question. I see Sandra's typed in, I will look into this more in depth based on the information provided. Okay, and personally get back to me. So she was responding to that last question. Excellent. Not seeing any hands. I just want to make sure, let me go through the panel fully. I am not seeing any hands and I'm not seeing anything in the chat either, Kate. So we're going to move forward.
Okay, so in order to finish up today's session, let's do a quick review of how we were able to get to this successful outcome. First, we allowed the customer to vent by listening and using only simple phrases such as, I see. Next, we found the common ground by saying something like, I'm sorry you had to go through 4 other agencies before you got to me. I would be frustrated too being bounced around like that. Next, we focused that conversation by listening to understand. We asked questions to make sure we had all the correct information to start our process, and then advised the customer what he'd need to do to make sure he got the birth certificate within the time frame. And lastly, we apologized to him for being transferred so many times, and we offered to have that birth certificate pulled and ready for pickup at his convenience. So we've reviewed several steps today that you can use when you're confronted with conflict in customer relations. And I hope you heard some strategies that you can use on the job. I'd like you to take a moment and type in one idea, if you would, that you've gotten from this webinar that you'd like to put into practice when you get back to your desk and when you experience that conflict. Please just type
Go
one
ahead.
idea.
Yep, go ahead and drop those in the text chat. Thank you, Kate. And I see they're coming in fast and furiously. Listen, apply more open-ended questions, listening to understand. I think that's a very underrated thing, listening to understand. We often listen to reply. I think
Agreed.
listening to understand in customer service is definitely the way to go.
Mhm.
Listen and open-ended questions, asking more questions. I'm seeing use of open-ended questions, listening, and leave the follow-up ball in their court. Again, putting the responsibility back on the customer,
Mhm.
paying attention to the customer's needs. So as you can see, Kate, there was a lot gleaned from today's session, and they're still coming
Excellent.
in.
Oh, I'm so glad. Very, very good. And I wish you all really the very best in applying this back in your roles. And thank you for sharing part of your day with us. Before we go into any Q&A time, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle, who will talk about upcoming webinars and also the course evaluation.